Hey everyone, it's Kerry Jeffrey from Emotional Autoimmunity. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, counselor, and coach, and I help teach you all of the essential emotional skills and tools that you need to live your best life with chronic illness. And Happy New Year to everyone. I hope, however you celebrated, so I didn't celebrate, that you had a good night and that you are looking forward to this brand new year. And I posted a meme this morning that has already resonating with a lot of you. And there can be a lot of pressure on everybody that, like, new year, new you, you've got to change, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and make resolutions. And look, that's all rubbish. You don't have to do anything of the sort at all, really, unless you want to, because how you got through the last year is an achievement, right? And especially when you've got chronic illness, you're dealing with so many additional layers of difficulty that ordinary people don't face. So however you got through last year, that was absolutely enough, and be happy with that. And you do not need to change for anyone. And you don't need to change or make New Year's resolutions just because it's a new year. I mean, basically, we've done another revolution around the sun, so it's completely up to you. So take off the pressure. Don't feel that you should be doing all of these things. So I wanted to talk to you today because I know this is a very, very common issue about why relationships with a narcissist do so much damage. And if you've ever been in a relationship with a narcissist, or you know somebody who has, then you know that the impact that they have on you and your life is profound and damaging and long lasting, and it can be incredibly difficult to overcome, especially if you're trying to overcome it on your own. So let's talk a little bit about the behaviors of the narcissist and the patterns that they follow, because there are very clearly defined patterns that they use in order to hook you into a relationship and keep you in that relationship while they continue to do all the damage that they do. So in general, these are all general, right? Narcissists tend to be very charismatic, very charming, bigger than life people with a lot of intensity in their behavior. And if you've ever met a narcissist, they can feel almost overwhelming. They have the gift to be able to focus exclusively on you. So you can feel when you are with the narcissist as if you are the most important person in the room. You will walk away feeling really seen, really appreciated, really understood, and they have a knack of reading you and giving you what you have always wanted to hear. So the things that your heart and your soul have been longing to hear. And this is something that narcissists are very good at. So they're very good at picking the person in the room who has a wound or a crack or something that makes them vulnerable, so that they can then very methodically use to exploit you and to get inside your life, get inside your head, and then start doing what they do, which is to manipulate and gaslight and control you. So generally in the pattern with a narcissist, they will come on very strong in the beginning. They will make you big promises. They will treat you like the only person in the world. You will never feel so loved, so understood, so profoundly appreciated, but that lasts for a very, very short period of time. So that's the honeymoon phase. That's what they do to get you in. And then within a very short amount of time, they reverse. They become very critical. They become very cold. They become very demanding or dismissive or put you down. And they can continue that hot and cold behavior for a long time. So they are very keenly aware of when they are pushing you too far. All right, they're pushing you too far to the point where you might think about ending the relationship, and then the honeymoon behavior will come back. You will be wonderful, of course, I'm sorry, and I would never do that. It's just that I love you so much. And they have this way of making you believe that you control their behavior, all right, which is very interesting. So they will make it all about you, but in a negative way. So in the beginning, it was all about you with how wonderful you were, but now it's all about you in the massive impact that you have on them, according to them, and that you somehow are making them respond as they do. So there will be two ways that you do this. That is always the pattern. Either you are not enough of something, or you are too much of something. So not enough, you will be not loving enough, not sexual enough, not kind enough, not pretty enough, not good enough, not smart enough. And they will give you comparisons to a whole lot of other people. So they will make comments about, usually, and if you're a man, it'll be another man that they like or admire, and pointing out ways that you are not like that person, or they wish you were like that person. Or if it's you're a woman, it will be another woman. So they will give that person compliments, and they will talk about that person, and it maybe even say, I wish you could be more like Kate, or I wish you could be more like that person. And it's, if you take offense to that, or if you call them on that, well, there's always an excuse, like you're overreacting, you're being too sensitive. I mean, they were just pointing out that they happen to appreciate that person. Doesn't mean anything, right? So you're either going to be not enough of something, or you're going to be too much of something. So too demanding, too possessive, too controlling, too dismissive, too noisy, too bitchy, too nagging, too fat, too thin, too whatever. So it's always going to come down to one of those two categories. You are going to be either not enough of something or too much of something. But either way, they will blame you for making them behave the way they do towards you. So they will say things like, if you didn't nag me so much, then I would do things. Or if you weren't so demanding, I would do things. Or, if you would lose weight, then I would be more attracted to you. So it always comes back to being your fault in some way. And what they also are the masters of gaslighting. So if you're not aware of what gaslighting is, gaslighting originally came from a very old movie that starred Charles Boyer back in the days. I think it was in black and white films. And what had happened, he had married somebody, was in a relationship with them, and he was deliberately trying to drive her crazy to get her money, right, get her inheritance. So in those days, right, there were literal gas lighting. So the lighting within the house was gas fueled. So what he was doing, he would adjust the light in the gas lights. So he would turn it down, turn it up, do different sorts of things. And when she would remark on what was happening with the gaslight, he would say, "What are you talking about? It's exactly the same. Oh, I'm concerned about you. I think you might be losing your mind. You're seeing things that aren't there." So that's where the term gaslighting comes from. So gaslighting is a psychological ploy that somebody either deliberately or not does, that is arguing against your real lived experience. So you would say to the narcissist, when we went out last night, you completely ignored me. Like, what's that about? I just felt like I may as well have not bothered to be there. And they'll say something, "What are you talking about? Like, that's ridiculous. Of course, don't you remember? I was with you. Like, I was only thinking of you. Like, I had to be nice to the people, like we were the hosts, right? So of course I had to be nice. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course I love you. How could you not see that? Of course my attention was on you. Stop being ridiculous. Is there something wrong with you? is there something wrong with you? I'm starting to wonder. I mean, sometimes I don't know, I'm a bit concerned about your state of mental health, right? So they will deny it and they will twist it and they will make you doubt yourself. And what they're trying to do is, when they behave the way that they do, they want to get you to believe that they actually didn't do whatever you're accusing them of. And so they will do this in a way that you start to think you are crazy, or you're having issues with your memory, or you are being too sensitive, or you are overreacting, or maybe it wasn't that bad, right? So they are playing with your mind. And this is really difficult to comprehend. And what makes narcissistic relationships so damaging is that we participate in them to the extent that our inability to actually accept the fact that someone that we supposedly love and supposedly loves us could deliberately and with malice and forethought attempt to make us believe things that are not true. And when you are with a narcissist, it can feel almost impossible to imagine that someone could actually do that. It causes cognitive dissonance in our mind. So what we want to believe is that they do love us because they say they love us, yet they're behaving in this very different way. And so there's this dissonance between what we're being told and what we want to believe and the reality of what's going on. So it seems easier just to believe what you're being told rather than listen to your gut or listen to your heart, right? Because what the narcissist has been doing deliberately through this whole process is breaking your trust in yourself. So getting you to mistrust your instincts, getting you to mistrust your guilt, getting you to mistrust your perception of reality and truth, right? So it's a very powerful, damaging thing. So when you're caught in a relationship with a narcissist, what you tend to do is to deny, you tend to minimize, and you tend to make excuses or justifications for their behavior. So what generally happens might be that you might have a big, terrible fight with a narcissist, or a big, gaslighting experience where you saw them do something, or you experienced them do something and you confronted them with that, and they turn it all around and make it all your fault, or something you didn't do, or have you believing at the end of it that didn't really happen. Or if it did happen, it didn't happen the way that you think it did. So you go to bed and you wake up the next morning and you immediately start to justify it and rationalize it and go, well, maybe it wasn't so bad. And maybe I was overreacting, or look, they're really tired, and maybe I'm just expecting too much. I probably just blew it all out of proportion, really. It's probably all my fault. So we unconsciously participate in this relationship because we become so confused and so unsure of what's real or what's not real, and so completely convinced that it's somehow our fault, right? That's how powerful and toxic the narcissist is. So what is the process of recovery? Now, I can only talk about what I actively do for my clients and the way that I work in programs with clients that have been in a toxic narcissistic relationship. And some of these have actually been for decades, like 25 years or more. But the interesting thing about this is just as much damage can be done on 6 and 12 months than 25 years. So in 25 years, that person has built up a lot of internal behaviors and neural pathways and habitual thinking that support the habits in the relationship. So the first thing that I do in my program when I'm working with someone who's been in a narcissistic relationship is we've got to get rid of the trauma and the PTSD, because generally if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, you have PTSD, whether that's by it being diagnosed or whether you recognize it or not. You have been in a constant series of traumatic experiences that have changed your perception of truth and reality, and that is a trauma to the mind and to the emotions and how you think and feel. So that's the first thing that we've got to do, and that's a very important part of the process, because the analogy I always use when I'm talking to somebody in a discovery session, which you'll recognize if you've worked with me, is that if you're a house right now, your house is on fire, right? And traditional methods of dealing with trauma and traditional therapy, which I do not do traditional therapy. I do my own specific brand of therapy. I don't know anybody who works like me. But talking about trauma re-traumatizes you. Even things like EMDR still want to revivify, which brings back to life. So revivification is bringing back to life the trauma, and then using the series of eye movements and things in an attempt to desensitize you. How I work, you do not bring up the trauma again. We don't need to talk about it. We don't revisit it. We don't do anything like that. It is completely safe, it is very relaxing, and it is not going to re-traumatize you. And I use a very specific form of hypnotherapy to deal with that in a way that breaks the trauma pattern for somebody with PTSD. So it's very easy and safe. So talking about trauma re-traumatizes you. Talk therapy for trauma when your house is on fire is like, well, let's talk about the chair that's burning in the living room. Let's understand why that chair in the living room is burning and how it got to be burning. And maybe let's move the chair to another part of the house. It's not doing anything to put out the fire. So what I'm doing with the first part of the process, and this is in every program that I do, everyone I work with, we've got to get rid of the trauma first, is like dumping a great big bucket of water over that burning house. So we've got the hoses and we've just dumped a great big lot of water over the top of that. And then we see how much of the fire has gone out, because trauma experienced in a narcissistic relationship can be compounded, which means it's built one on another, on another, on another, on another, and it's all linked to different events. So we dump that big load of water on the trauma, on the fire, and we see how much of it has gone out. And then when we're certain that all the fire is out, then we look at the existing structure. So the existing structure that you have as a result of being in a narcissistic relationship is all of the beliefs you have about who you are and what you were doing and how too much of something you were or how not enough of something you were. And we've got to get you back to the reality of your truth and the reality of the experience. And one by one, we've got to get rid of those hooks that the narcissist has used to keep you tied to them. So very manipulative, very guilt-inducing hooks. And so then we're working with different types of therapy, some different sorts of hypnotherapy, some different cognitive techniques, and I'm going to be giving you skills and emotional tools that you start using from the first session to get you grounded back in the truth of what's real. Like what is absolutely real, what you are emotionally responsible for, what you are not, how to get out of all the stories that narcissist has reinforced in your head about your powerful control on them when it's actually been vice versa. So we've got to pull you back in to reality to keep you out of that process, that drama, those beliefs, that gaslighting, that programming that they've helped to create for you, and rebuild that foundation of love and trust and self-respect within. Because if you remember, when I started this conversation, I talked about the fact that the narcissist sees in someone their emotional wound or that crack that they can exploit and get through. It's almost like, for a narcissist, it's like you have a glowing sign on your forehead. They know the targets. They're very acute with body language. They tend to pick on people that have had some sort of trauma. in their past, or that have been damaged or feel damaged in some way, or felt neglected or unloved or unappreciated, or have been bullied, or have had some experience. So they're very good at picking the mark, which is why they don't go for someone who has lots of self-confidence. Though, saying that, there are specific narcissists who take great pleasure in taking a strong, intelligent, independent, confident person and doing whatever they can to break them down. But that still, they are good. There is a crack there somewhere, and they get that crack and they use it and they exploit it. So it's really important to understand that what a narcissist does has nothing to do with you. It is all on them. As I said, this is deliberate, pre-planned behavior. And what you need to understand is narcissists do not have any empathy. People are like playthings to them. It's like, manipulating chess pieces on a board to get a result. They cannot empathize with anyone. They see themselves as the victims of the world. It is all about them. They will never accept responsibility for anything. It will always be someone else's fault, and that is one of the best ways that you can pick out a narcissist. If you meet someone who is charming and articulate and charismatic, but through their conversations you hear this complete lack of personal responsibility, they will generally give you a sob story about how badly they were treated. They will tend to say all of the other people they've been in relationships in were crazy or damaged or demanding and wounded them. They are perpetual victims who never accept responsibility for anything they have done. It is always going to be somebody else's fault. And this is what makes them so incredibly damaging and difficult to recover from. And why they are so hard to recover from is, as human beings, we always want to know why. Like we want to understand why somebody is the way that they are. We want to understand why relationships ended. We want to understand why somebody did the things that they did in order to get closure, right? In order to make sense of it all. And you simply cannot make sense of a narcissist. They are the way that they are. The why of what they do is because that's what they do. That had literally nothing to do with you. But because they have worked on you for so long and taught you to believe that it is all their fault and they are somehow always your victim, then you're always thinking about what you could have done, or what you could have said, or how you could have changed, or if you'd have just found those magical words or the right behavior, then it would have been back to how it was at the start, when they swept you off your feet and they really loved you. So if you have been in a relationship with a narcissist, then you know how damaging they are. It's not something that you can recover from alone, because you will get stuck in that loop of why was it me? What did I do? Why did they do that? What you are constantly stuck in this psychological loop that goes around and around and around, and it can feel almost like an obsession, that you can't stop thinking about them. You can't stop thinking about what they did because of the damage that's been done. And that's an open loop that you need help to close. And you need the help of somebody else to do that. So if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, what I really encourage you to do, if what I've said resonates with you in any way, is to book in your free discovery session with me. Now at this point you might be thinking, what's the catch? There's no catch. I know the whole free meeting up online has been used by people, for sales purposes. It's one of the biggest things. However, in this case, this is not a sales call. I do this because I wasted a lot of time and money booking and paying for a session with either a psychologist or a psychiatrist or some other form of therapist in order to get me in the door to see whether they were the right person to help me. They weren't going to spend time talking with me beforehand for free and let me ask questions. If I wanted to meet them and find out what they could do, I had to pay to be in the room. And I went through a lot of people until I found the right person to help me, and I wasted a lot of money. I want to save us both that step, basically. So it is free. There is no catch. I am not going to ask you for a decision at the time of the discovery session at all. In fact, the opposite. I will say to you, here is the program I recommend for you. This is why I recommend it. This is what it works, how it works. This is what it does. This is how much it costs in Australian dollars. This is how much I'd be invoicing you in Australian dollars and what the prices are. I want you now to go away, think about it. Take all the time you need. Talk about it with your partner if you've got one. If this feels right for you, what I do after the session, right? Immediately after the session, I email you all of the information, everything we've talked about, including the costs. And once I email you, I don't follow up. I leave it completely up to you. Now, personally, this is how I buy things, right? Or how I invest in things. I don't like sales pressure, right? I'm an introvert. If I go into a store and they keep harassing me, or I get a feeling that they're tuned in and they want to get me in there and start trying to sell me things, I won't even go in the door, right? So I'm just giving you the opportunity that I would like. So there is no catch, there is no hook, there is nothing. I'm giving you free time, and I'll give you all the information, and I'll invite you to go away and think about it. And if it's not for you, you don't even have to let me know. You just leave it. I keep the notes that I've made for a week, and if I don't hear back from you, I put them through my shredder, and that's the end of the story, right? If you think about it, decide you want to work with me, then you just reply to the email and say, yep, I'm committed, I'm in, let's get going. And I'll go, great, let's get started, and then I'll get through the process of doing that. So if you've got any worries about that, that it's going to be some sort of sales call, it's not. I mean, honestly, I'm just giving you the opportunity. What I do ask though, if you book in with me, please show up. Like, please show up. If for any reason you need to cancel, you'll need to do it at least the day before using my automated system, the same one that you booked in. The email confirmation you get will allow you to go back in and cancel the session, because as someone with chronic illness, please remember, I'm expending energy to be there and show up, and I'm committed to showing up. So if you can't meet me for any reason, please cancel it with enough time so that I don't expend that energy. That's all I ask of you. Okay, so I hope this has been useful for you. If you have been in a relationship with a narcissist, and you know they're very good at making you feel like the crazy one and that it's all your fault, and that's a terrible thing to do to people, and it is very, very damaging. Please know it's not that you weren't strong enough. Please know it's not that you weren't good enough. Please know that it's not your fault. If they are damaged, they have no empathy. This is what they do. This is what they delight in. And the minute you're out of their lives, they will be on to the next victim, and you will be the next crazy person that they will use to tell the next person about how damaged they were. It's not your fault. You can recover, get your sanity back, rebuild your trust in yourself, and you can go on to have good, loving relationships, the ones that you really deserve. So I'm going to get on with my day. Bye for now, and I'll talk to you later.